Hello, I'm KHOU Meteorologist Chris Ramirez. We are tracking the tropics. The conditions are mostly quiet, but it's just an important reminder that we are heading closer to the peak of hurricane season. So looking at all of our named storms so far, we've had Andrea, Barry, Chantel, Dexter, Aaron, Fernand. Aaron was the only hurricane that we've seen so far this season, so our activity has been quite not as active as what we saw last year. And so as we look at the notable U.S. hurricanes in recent memory, we've had the great hurricane of 1900, the catastrophic hurricane that literally changed the landscape of Galveston. That happened back on September 8th. Katrina, we are at the 20th anniversary of Katrina's landfall to the deep south portions of New Orleans, Louisiana, as well as Mississippi, catastrophically impacted by Katrina, and that happened today in 2005. Even Harvey, August 25th. Hurricane Ike made landfall in Galveston on September 13th, and look at the common denominator here with all of these notable storms that we've seen here across the Gulf Coast for the past few years. Definitely happening in the September and August months. So that's just kind of going to show you that even though that we are at the end of August, hurricane season not over yet. We still have quite a bit of time to go before we reach that peak date. This is looking at the stadium effect. This picture is actually inside the eye of Hurricane Katrina from the hurricane hunters, and you're able to see those clear blue skies, calm conditions out in the eye, and it's along those inner and outer eye walls is really what you usually see the strongest winds from this storm. Of course, it was a Category 5 hurricane that made landfall on the 28th that definitely heavily impacted New Orleans, even portions of Biloxi, Gulfport, Mississippi, enduring the catastrophic damage from that storm. And like I said, getting closer to that peak date. The peak date of hurricane season is September 10th. We're about to be in the month of September, and so just be on the lookout for more waves moving off the coast of Africa, and that's what we're looking at right now. We're looking at another wave that the National Hurricane Center has highlighted. Now, it's not looking too impressive. It's actually remaining very unorganized across the off the coast of Africa. So it's been at a 20% yesterday. The National Hurricane Center has upped that to 30% chance of development within the next 7 days. We also have to keep in mind that we have still some Saharan dust out in the Atlantic Ocean. There's a plume of it just north of South America, and usually around this time of year, those tropical waves take that more southerly track, and just so happens that it's really just encompassed by that dust plume that's currently out in the southern Atlantic. And then the forecast model is showing another massive plume moving off the coast of Africa as we head into the August 31st to September 5th date range. And so Saharan dust keeping things at bay, and also we are expecting those conditions to remain mostly just quiet out there as we progress through the next few weeks or so. So looking at the tropics just once again, we are also seeing mostly just the effects of these frontal boundaries that are going to be moving through southeast Texas. But in terms of the tropics, just not really expecting much of anything. We had Fernand. It has dissipated into a subtropical low. I think it's actually fizzed out into nothing as that disturbance actually moved off towards Europe. But if you're looking at the satellite imagery right now, you have a little bit of an activity just off the western Africa that could be another wave that could emerge in the next maybe few days or so, and even models are not really too impressive on that system as well. So this is what the area that we're looking at, this highlighted area, and you're able to see those clouds sort of just not really providing much organization in the coming days, especially as we're dealing with that Saharan dust, and that it's going to be moving across the Atlantic, especially still, and it's really the cause of bringing those hazy skies, especially across the Caribbean as well. So good news here is that we're seeing mostly quiet conditions for the tropics here across the Atlantic basin. And that's going to be the case at least for the next few weeks. But the reason why we're doing these tropical updates is to kind of just giving you a reminder that the peak of hurricane season fastly approaching us, and it's also important to know that some of those notable storms that we've seen has happened at the end of August and September. We had Hurricane Harvey, which was a tropical storm over the Houston area, dumped a lot of catastrophic rainfall here across the Houston area, and then Hurricane Ike made landfall in Galveston, heavily impacted the island. It happened on September 13th back in '08. Helene happened last year, and that was on September 26th. This is around, that was at the end of September. So we still have a good month to go before hurricane season. That's expected to see that activity ramp up. So just keep that in mind for the next few weeks or so, to even though it is quiet now, just to have a heads up and have those storm action plans ready for just to keep yourself ahead of the storm if there is another tropical disturbance that's going to become more organized, especially out here across the Atlantic basin. So definitely expecting that to continue, and it's going to be mostly quiet, but today marks the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, and of course we were all heavily impacted by that. Even if you were here living in the Houston area like myself, around today we had a lot of evacuees moving into Houston, but just keep in mind that it's those storms that are just really teaches us lessons, especially as we progress through the hurricane season going into the months of September and November. So fastly approaching that peak date, conditions are quiet, and we are expecting no threat from the tropics here across the Houston area, at least for the next few days. And of course, we are tracking the latest weather updates, especially as we head into a rather rainy Labor Day weekend on KHOU.com and on the KHOU 11 app. Make sure to join us on the KHOU 11 News at 10 p.m. Of course, myself, I'm filling in for Chief Meteorologist David Paul, and me and Lynn will have the latest news updates as well. Have a good rest of your night.